Well, I never thought this day would come. 10 million views. We wanted to do a video, something special, but before we could do it, and there was so much going on with California, that we went to 11 million views. So this is commemorating 11 million views. And it's just, gratitude is the only thing I could think of. I'm just filled with gratitude. And when things are tough and people's healths are tough, it's hard to find gratitude. And I am grateful for the gratitude I am feeling and have been feeling. We were one of the first channels to point out how these huge vortexes were stealing water from the southern hemisphere. And we were showing you how, like up by Greenland, that's a huge storm system. And you could see it affecting as far south as Africa, the rivers of moisture coming up. At the bottom of your screen, you can see moisture coming up towards the north. That's coming from the equator, folks. And it's the volume of water coming up now is greater than I would have ever predicted. But I just wanted to point out, we were the first channel to point this out before mainstream started raising concerns. But you knew it was happening if you were watching the channel. But these rivers, these arms that are part of a spiral, these rivers of moisture are wreaking havoc on the rest of the globe as well. And the northern hemisphere has so much moisture in it from increased evaporation and cosmic rays that help with cloud formation. See Astro Traveler on that one. But it's really amazing that we were also the first channel to point out how the jet stream has changed, and how whenever the jet stream got to the west coast of the United States, it would always fold back on itself, create these counterclockwise spinning spirals that have now dominated the globe and the global weather. And it's impacting the southern hemisphere now. And the amount of moisture and the speed increases with heat, has become created so much momentum in this stream of moisture that HARP, as you want to call it, VLFs, microwaves, NEXRADs, they're having a harder and harder time keeping the jet stream out of California, as California is finding out. But these spirals set off even smaller spirals that look like the storms of yesterday. But coming in at the top of your screen, you see a big old wall of water coming down. That's from a monster vortex. These monster vortexes extend from North Alaska down to Mexico, just to give you the scope. And when you have a low pressure system that's that big, you begin to start drawing water over the equator if the water gets too close. And you can see though that surge of water on the lower left hand corner, that's going to end up in Canada one day, soon actually. And you can see the rivers of moistures being just drawn right up. And these rivers go through Texas after having coming through Mexico. And look at the stream of water at your lower right. This is the Atlantic Ocean. Look at that stream. That is headed north. Now that is from the equator, and some of it's south of the equator, and it is headed north, folks. North. Okay, and all of these streams, these huge streams, are headed north when you get to the front side of that rotation. The back sides are usually cold and dry. But look at the top of the screen. Look at that huge vortex. This is the whole globe facing Australia and looking over at the Philippines. But way on the right-hand side, that's west of Hawaii. And we've got moisture coming up there near South America, crossing over the equator. Look near the Philippines, crossing over the equator. Near Indonesia, crossing over the equator. Behind Japan, it's just so much moisture is being pulled up to the northern hemisphere. It blows me away just to look at these simulations. You can see the shearing upon the southern equatorial moisture band. The northern moisture band is completely gone, except when these vortexes come through, people refer to it as the moisture band that it used to be, but it's not anymore. And the Pineapple Express is gone just because a vortex swings through swings its southern arm through Hawaii. You're calling it a river. It's not a river so much as it is an arm to a spiral. Here's another place where the moisture is crossing. Now this is so bizarre. The stream of moisture on your left is headed south. The stream of moisture on your right, we just showed it to you, turns and goes north. And then the thunderstorm moisture is actually going north over the Caribbean. We are also the first channel to point out a shift and change in the moon and propose a hypothesis of asteroid impact doing this. Since the moon does not have a magnetosphere, in its relatively small, 1% the size of Earth, in terms of Earth, we saw this rotation change, and this is the new rotation that we're seeing since about 2011. And this is called libration. This wobble is called libration. And this was taken back in 27, and we just flipped it over 45 degrees so you could see where the new wobble is. And once in a while, that crater up at 11 o'clock ends up at the 1 o'clock position. So that simulation is kind of narrow on the amplitude of that wobble. But the other thing, speaking of wobble, we pointed out the Earth's wobble. Of course, we got much criticism, and then a year and a half later, NASA comes out and talks about the increased wobble. But, you can't hide the obvious when your North Star is wobbling. We made a series of predictions that these quakes were going to happen, and we showed you how when there was a wobble, which there isn't currently, that the opposite side of the Earth is also affected by the extreme motion, and some parts were actually quite stationary. The nodal periods, or the nodes, the nodal points, excuse me. And so we were tunneling through the Earth through one significant earthquake and coming out through the epicenter of another earthquake. Amazing. And then, of course, NASA comes out and admits the pole had shifted. Of course, you knew that if you watched the channel before they told you. We are also one of the first channels, or the first channel, to show and demonstrate that the sun is now drawing in matter from the corona. And we didn't think this used to happen, but when you have a denser particle count in your corona, then you're going to start drawing in to your magnetic regions and active regions, and to your vortexes. You're going to be drawing in matter. We made some of the most incredible and beautiful and just artistic videos on the sun during solar maximum, but those got very few views in a relative sense because we were just a startup. But we're going to make a best of and show you some of the most incredible music to some of the most incredible solar anomalies. But we were showing you how the electrons traveling through the cloud of material, a cloud of plasma, was creating different lines, and different magnetic fields were being pointed out and illuminated. But basically, when we started doing movies about the auroras in the solar corona, they cropped this tighter so that there's less corona to film. And maybe it's gone back to its original cropping, but it's hard to show you images like this where the solar corona is actually part of prominences and active regions now. And that's due to increased density. And of course, we were one of the first channels to point out and call out the fact that the helium was getting denser. The helium bubble itself, the investigation into the interstellar medium had progressed from late 90s all the way till 2011, and they pretty much mapped the helium pretty well. Also, with respect to the corona of the sun, we were one of the first, or the only YouTube channel talking about the flashing. This is 1600 angstroms. This flashing that was observed in the close corona of the sun. And we, for a long time, said it was particle collision, particle interaction. where either something collided or lost electrons. And we pointed out now how that is denser than it ever used to be, or is that a word, or is it more dense? Somebody help out on that one. But it came in waves. It came in waves. And then the phenomenon started showing up here on Earth. We said over a year and a half, 2 years ago, when we started seeing all the supermoons, that the moon's orbit was more elliptical. And then we find an article trying to figure out why the moon is more elliptical and its eccentricity. And they call it a secular change, but I call it a solar system change. And remember, you cannot affect the motion of any planet or any planetary body without affecting all its other motions. So if you change one motion, you're going to somehow impact all the other motions. And we were the first channel to point out the changes in the moon, and actually received huge criticism, even from esteemed astronomers, for our observations. And that's now been proven. They call it climate change is doing it to us. We also pointed out how in February we were in a pocket of all of this material, and that filaments on this side of the sun left rather quickly, swiftly, and without rotation. And we just got hit by one of those, by the way. We also were the first to point out that we were in a debris field that was getting thicker and denser, or more denser again. But you knew all of this was going to happen if you watch the channel. That's the amazing thing. I just can't get it through my head that all of this was more of a projected stuff and not reported as it came. We also told you that this brown dwarf could be going further south. That would grab onto the South Pole, stabilize the wobble, but create more up and down motion and that eccentricity, and that we would see the horizontal shifting of the plates. And lo and behold, the South Antarctic plate was just as active as you'll ever see it. We are also the only channel on YouTube to tell you why there's a standing wave on Venus, and it was as simple as watching a surfer surf a standing wave in a river delta. But yes, Venus doesn't have a magnetosphere, so it interacts directly with ionized particles. Its atmosphere actually becomes comet-like, and it disrupts this surface flow when this thing goes through the helium cloud. We were the first channel to point out lithium as a primary cosmic ray, almost proving that there's a brown dwarf near our solar system. But in the end, the journey isn't over. In the end, there has been over 1,000 complaints to us regarding health effects mimicking radiation exposure. And I think we do need to shift our content of this channel to preparation and adaptation. And anybody who's still clinging to the frozen planet scenario, the ice age scenario, all based upon some ice age that really we don't know even existed in the 1600s, 1700s, when people were still sailing the oceans quite fine. People supposedly counted sunspots just as well as we count sunspots today. So the Great Maunder Minimum is a hoax and a half, and we just want you not to buy into it and to start getting ready and respect what's coming from the sky. We want you to prepare yourself. The more people that are prepared, the better off all of mankind will be.